Ni hao, annyeong, hello, I am the Dark Fae and welcome back to Confessions of a First-Time Dungeon Master. I have with me today Tourist Tonkatsu, or Vacation Tonkatsu, with his little hat and camera. But anyways, it's been 6 weeks between sessions, so we played early to mid December, and we only just had our first session back last week with late January. So going into the session 6, was hard just because we kind of ended not in the spot that I wanted before the break. And so it was kind of right in the middle of their quest line / combat even. So that was okay, but not great. And then I don't know, just because I didn't do any D&D stuff really over the holidays, so it was actually kind of difficult for me to come back and get into it and prep and be motivated to DM and finish this quest line. I don't know. It's not that I forgot how, I think, but it's just more I didn't really have that creative drive to make something. And also that's partly because I had kind of already prepped for the combat and all of that, so it didn't feel like there was a whole lot I needed to do, but I still felt oh my gosh, I've got so much to prep. It was really weird. So that was pretty difficult going into the session. So I ended up prepping in kind of a different way than I usually do. Usually I'll think of a lot of different branches or arcs, potential quests or stories that to offer my players and that they can follow, and then I'll write it all out, come up with what characters they can meet or talk to, or what the threads or leads that they can be given, stuff like that. And I did write down, sorry, don't got some picture here. I did write down some stuff, but it was a lot less. I only did really this page, just this and this, and that was really all I did. I don't know if that was because of the prep that I'd done kind of originally, but or if it was just kind of more difficult for me because after this quest line, they can literally do anything. They might not even go back to the Siskorian Keep, they might just keep traveling. So I think it just made it hard to prep without really knowing what direction they wanted to go in. And part of that is also attributed to because when we play, a lot of the players are oh, let's just screw this and let's just go do this. I'm but are you actually going to? Because this is D&D, you can do it if you want to. So I guess that's part of a DM's job, right, is to be able to adapt. And but it's just, I'm not quite there yet, I think, since this is my first time DMing, and I only got into the game a year or so ago. I've been playing for the same amount of time as my players, so it's a little bit, I don't have that experience. But yeah, so different way of prepping. I did write down some kind of quest points, bullet points, NPC points, just to have something to refer to, but I think I mostly prepped by playing out RP moments kind of in my head or out loud to myself. I'm not crazy, I swear. I roleplay and talk to myself and prepare moments, because I assume at some point they're going to go back to the keep and talk with Ferney, the goth elf who gave them this quest. So I have a lot of that RP already thought out and planned out, so I didn't really feel I needed to prepare much for that, written down or otherwise, I guess. So it's a different sort of prep, which I didn't expect to really be a thing. And I'm quite interested to see how well it does versus like my meticulous note-taking prep. And like, then maybe I think I can maybe come up with a more organized system so that I don't feel the need to write everything down, and I feel like I can kind of improv a little bit better. Because I say that because they haven't made it back yet. So anyways, that was how I felt going into the prep for this week, or for this session. Try to come up with different quests and like hooks for their backstories, but again, difficult when I have no idea what they want to do next. Yeah. And because I don't want to just like throw things at them and be like, hey, you need to do this now. I want them to be able to choose, but my party is also not very good at choosing or having a goal. So more on that in a minute. So recap of the session. So we started off with combat. So our party of 6, they were caught in this kind of a tree-domed, secluded area of the forest. That was kind of like a portal room, sort of. So it's like a lot of trees and branches entwining to make these dome crystals and bones kind of scattered around the area. And then there's like this ring of vines and branches entwined that kind of make this circle at the end. The witch, who is one of the leaders of the Basque, along with one of her bodyguards. I'll call her the witch. She's a strength of the grave sorceress, and he is a barbarian zealot. They were taking prisoners, and the witch had opened up a portal to somewhere that my players don't know, and then they were kind of like shoving these people through the portal. At the very end of the last session, Basil had cast Detect Thoughts, but the barbarian made their saving throw, alerting them to their presence. Combat started. So we started with combat. I should have actually prepared a little bit more here in knowing how to play the characters, because I made actual character sheets for the witch and the barbarian zealot, but I'm not too familiar with the sorceress and the barbarian classes. So that took a little bit during combat for me to figure out properly what their abilities were and what their spells did and stuff like that. I'm still not very great at scaling combat. Partly because I kind of miscalculated for this one, because I want combat to be challenging. I really don't like it when combat is just like an easy couple round massacre, or like something where no one really gets hurt, or like there are a couple people who are totally fine, unless the situation calls for it, of course. But I don't like it. So I made these 2 characters level 6, and then they had an additional Malgoth, like this kind of beast, tentacled beast with them. And I think that might have been a little bit too strong, but keep in mind that they have 6 people to their 3, and that's why I made them more like a higher level. But I think the barbarian maybe should have been at level 5, because he was pretty strong with his rage and the amount of his damage output. I even messed up on his damage output, so he really could have just wrecked some of the players. But I think I should have waited on that, because they were only level 4 this time, so they don't have access to Revivify or any like death saving spells yet. And I feel like I should wait until they're level 5, so they at least have that option before I start like throwing potential, not total party kills, but like player kills into combat. So I think that was a little bit of my bad. I didn't really calculate. I just made a character and was like, okay, this is who they're up against. And I definitely could have killed a player or two. But yeah, so started off with combat. They didn't get the surprise round, so we all rolled initiative. Things were okay. They killed the Molgoth first, which is expected. It's the weakest of the 3 enemies. And then they ended up actually killing the witch. Sorcerers tend to be a little squishier. So when she died, I kind of meant to have the portal's magic fade, like as soon as the witch died, because she was the one who activated the portal. But at the same time, that felt like too much of like cutting off like a potential storyline or like a potential route or like area of exit that they could do. So I said that when she felt like the portal's magic starts to flicker and like the runes are starting to fade, so they have like a round or two before the portal closes if they want to try and, I don't know, cross, save the prisoners, what have you. But I don't think I've really planned for whether, like, what would happen if they crossed and then it closed behind them and they were trapped. Because it's a really frustrating thing. They're trying to find a skull and there are bones around. I thought that maybe they would go inspect the bones. But they only did that on the other side of the portal. So, after they killed the witch, they all decided to jump in the portal. Basil was knocked unconscious like the round before it closed, but they were able to kind of drag his body through. Our druid did a clever thing and shapeshifted into a tiny beast to kind of slip past the barbarian who is blocking kind of the portal entrance. So they all tumbled through, and what they know now is that I had given them lore before about how this forest, the Yokasi Forest, was once connected to another forest kind of like across the map, connected to the Darkwood, and how they used to be one forest and they're still connected somehow. So these portals are actually like waypoints between the 2 forests. So they all tumble out into a completely unrecognizable forest. They have no idea where they are. The portal closes behind them because the magic fades, and also the barbarian had retreated because he, instead of going into a rage and killing everyone, he needs to report back to the other head of the Basque. So he's off doing that. That'll be something that I'll need to keep track of. So they're now in this dark forest that is in Hezdaur Manak, the Sunless Battlefields, aka there's basically like a blanket of darkness or like shadow covering the sun so that it's always dark. And they have no idea where they are, and they take a long rest. So by the time it's the next day, they have really no idea where the slaves are, where, like, if anyone came to get them, or, like, what happened to them. So our druid, she casts Speak with Plants. I've never had to roleplay plants before, still don't know how to do it. And asked some information, but plants can, according to the spell, plants can only give accounts of like what they saw like the previous day. They also don't have eyes. So like when they ask like what did he look like, I'm like, I don't know how to answer this. Or if like, I know it's up to the DM, but I was also just like kind of stumped. So clearly my improv skills aren't very good. But so eventually, the information that they do get is that the way out is south, because that's kind of the fastest and safest way out of the forest that will lead them to the Sisquarian Keep, and that people passed by last night heading east, because east is to the spooky area of the world called Verdak, where the flesh rovers, of which the skulls they are hunting for reside, or were pushed back by the forces of Alith Malar, the Mage Tower, which our Warforged does know. My god, this is so complicated. So, at this point is kind of where none of us knows what's going on anymore. Like, I don't know as the DM. They don't know as the players. Like, they don't know whether to follow the slaves, to try and get out, and like, I don't know what they're trying to do either. So I'm like, so you're just like, okay, we go east. I'm like, okay, what are you looking for? And they don't know either. So they're just literally just walking. They don't have, I asked for a marching order, they're just walking. They're not keeping an eye out. They're not being stealthy. They're just walking. So I don't really have a role to give them, like a survival roll or a perception check, because they're not doing anything. And then I probably should have prepared some encounters for if this happened, but I also kind of didn't want to go into combat again after having this great big combat in the beginning, which was also a little frustrating just because we have so many people and rounds take a long time. But anyways, so at this point they're literally just wandering in a forest heading east based off of what some trees told them. And then after a few hours, they're gonna make it to the mountain range that separates the Darkwood and Verdok. And it takes a really long time to cross a mountain range. So I was like, okay, our Warforged, like, because of his history in battling the flesh rovers and stuff, he would recognize that, like, the darkness of this forest would probably put them in the Darkwood or in Hesdara Manak, because he is so old, like, he's been around for a very long time, just dormant and then awoken again. So he actually would know some of that. And then same with Basil, since he is from Alith Malar as well. So eventually they figure out where they are, / I show them where they are on a map that they don't have, but and then they decide to head south again, back to the Ziskarian Keep. Eventually, after a little bit of nudging, they, Basil, our bard, he sends a message to Ferney about what happened. And so then finally I can give them the prompt that they can come back even without the skull, and things will play out still. So that is where we left off. And it was so left off, and I offered that we would just kind of fast travel to the Ziskarian Keep, partly because I don't really want to stretch this out any longer, and I don't think I should, even though, like, I think I've exposed enough of the world that they can have leads to follow, but I think introducing anything else will be, like, too much and, like, derail things too much, even though I know that's okay to derail things in a D&D session. But, like, I think it's good to, like, have things be, like, have a sense of, like, milestones or, like, things getting completed, instead of, like, you just keep on moving on to, like, the next thing and, like, you never really finish anything. So I want to give my players, like, a sense of, like, okay, we finished this chapter is done. So that's why I'm going to start there with the RP that I've already prepared for, like, 2 or 3 sessions. So that'll hopefully be good, and then I can figure out what they want to do and hopefully give them some more interesting things to latch on to. So that was our session 6 recap. There were a few things here and there that were, like, a little, like, not too great. I know it was, I'm trying to be more understanding, I guess, because it was our first session back. Everyone's rusty. I'm very rusty. So, but just, I feel bad sometimes running combat, even though this is a very kind of combat-centric world, because it is so full of, like, these warring countries and, like, different sides that are constantly trying to, like, fight each other for dominance, basically. But because we have such a large party, we have 6 characters, 6 players, and then enemies are usually, like, at least 3 or 4, or, like, 2 to 4 or more. Sometimes I group the initiative orders, but it's still a very long time to get through a round. And so then sometimes it really sucks for players when you gotta wait 20-30 minutes to get to your round, and then you do something and you roll like shit and you miss, and then you gotta wait. And I don't really know how to remedy that. I was kind of being more lenient this turn because we were just getting back and kind of getting to know all our characters again. But in the future, like, it's difficult for me to be able to speed that up without the players, like, doing the work to speed it up. Like, I think it's necessary for them to know what they want to do on their turn and, like, pay attention to what the other people are doing so that they get a sense of what's going on in the battle and they can adjust accordingly, rather than them getting to their turn, realizing what's going on, needing, like, updates from people, and then saying, okay, well, should I do this? Well, maybe I should do that instead then if this happened. Stuff like that. So, like, maybe I should enforce more of a time, like, restraint with turns, is my thought. And I know, and one other thing, like, I know, this is just me, personally, just me ranting a little bit. This is my time. This is my DM time. Like, I know it sucks to roll and roll bad and then not feel like you're not doing anything. But it's just sometimes, like, comments about it to me, like, if I know they're not directed at me, but it kind of feels like not like a comment or not a criticism, but just like a negative comment on kind of like how the game is going. And because I'm the DM, I'm very responsible for how the game is going, so it feels like I'm not doing a good enough job to alleviate that. But there's points of the game where there's literally nothing I can do. So I think DMing, I've kind of gotten to accept that a little more. So like when I roll badly, I don't get as frustrated or as like upset as I used to. There was one game where I was being a player, so my character is the Way of the Shadow Monk, and monks, you know, all they do is attack. So we had a pretty combat heavy session, along with some other RP stuff, and I think out of like maybe like 30 rolls, if you think like 4 attacks per round, like 4 rounds, it's 16 rolls already, and then plus other RP stuff, maybe 5 rounds, I don't remember. If you think about 30 rolls, I think 5 of them were above a 10. And that's not an exaggeration. I rolled a natural 20 on a save, and then like a 17 or something on like a perception check. I think I hit like 2 attacks, and then like had a meh roll on like some random checks or something. But everything else was below a 10. And that was like including my bonuses. So like my attacks like were like anywhere between like an 8 and like a 12, and that doesn't hit. So that was the whole night, and it was really frustrating. But I don't think I ever like showed it. I mean, yes, I was like, God, I can't roll today, but I don't think I ever did it in a way that was like super sulky or like pissed off, or like in a way that I think would bring down the overall mood of the table. So sometimes when I'm DMing, I feel like there are sometimes, like, when players get frustrated, it kind of, well, maybe it doesn't affect other players. Maybe it's normal and, like, they see it as a natural reaction, which it is. But then for me, it kind of brings down my mood because I feel like, well, shit, players aren't rolling well and it's taking a long time to get to their turn. There's not a lot I can do about it. So, I don't know, maybe I'll have to find a way to get them more engaged in the story and then maybe, like, do some focus on their character to make up for it. But I don't know. I know it's really, I can't control everything, and it's not, like, 100% of the DM's job to, like, make sure everyone's having fun. Like, I know that sounds really weird, but it's also dependent on, like, whatever the players want to get out of it, because not everyone's, like, dedicated to the game in the same way. So yeah, those are just my thoughts for the session. So for next session, I've already prepped a lot of, like, I don't know what to prep again. I've already done a lot of, like, the RP prep, and then I've thought up some quest lines and stuff. So it kind of depends on what thread they want to pull, who they want to talk to, stuff like that, or where they want to go. So this will be interesting. I really want to introduce more backstory stuff, because backstory, like, intertwining and stuff is, like, my favorite thing. I just don't want to, like, randomly throw something in just for the hell of it and to have it, like, not be the right timing. So yeah. So that is our session 6. Session 7 should be up soon because we're actually playing. We might have already played this by the time I post it. So more D&D stuff, which I'm happy about, at least. But yeah. Comment down below on if you have any tips for kind of getting remotivated when you're not feeling motivated to DM or to prep. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!